In this video, we'll take a look at how we can add a double jump with animation and sound into our 2D platformer game. Okay, so we'll begin by adding the scripting for the player so that they can do the double jump. So to do that, first we'll head over to the player node, then we'll swap to the script view. Now I'm going to scroll down to where I have my original jumping code, which is just here. So I've got this handle jump. This is the sort of default that you get given by Godot when you create the player script. Now I'm actually going to start by tidying up my code a bit here because this physics process function is starting to get cluttered with quite a lot of different functionality. So I'm going to create a separate function up here called func handle underscore jumping. So this function is going to be for handling the jumping. Then I'm going to take this code out of here. So we'll cut it and we'll paste it as part of this handle jumping function that we've just made. And then where my code was before, I will call the handle jumping function that we're going to code in. So if I was to run this code just now, I would still have my regular jump functionality. But we're going to modify this now so that we can start to handle having a double jump. So back at the top of the script here, where we have our variables, we're going to create a new variable called jumpsLeft, which we will set as equal to 2. So the player is going to have 2 jumps that they are able to do. Now we'll scroll back down to our handle jumping function. And what I'm going to start off with is I'm going to adjust this if condition check. So at the moment we're checking if we press the jump button and if the player is on the floor. But because we've got a double jump now, it's going to be possible for the player to jump when they're in the air and not specifically on the floor. So we'll get rid of that check at the moment. Now inside of here, we're going to add some new checks. So we're going to say if jumpsLeft is equal to 2, then we will apply our regular jump velocity here. And then we'll also add an else if jumpsLeft is equal to 1. Then we'll also apply this jump velocity. Then underneath our statements, what we're going to do is say jumpsLeft minus equals 1. So we're going to take 1 away from the value of the jumpsLeft variable every time that we actually jump. So notice that's outside of both of these if statements. So just make sure that after the jump has happened, we take 1 away. So if we have 2 jumps, then after our first jump, which will happen here, we're going to take 1 away, which means we have 1 jump left. And then that means if we were to press the jump input again, then the next time we checked, jumps would equal 1 and we'd get an extra jump. But then if we pressed the jump button again, jumps would equal 0 and there's not going to be any additional checks that are checking for that, so we won't do any jumping. So we'll go and test this code out just now. So if we run the game, then if I press my jump button, which is space, and press it again, I do a little double jump. But the next time I try jumping, I can't, and that's because we haven't reset our jumpsLeft variable. So we'll close that and go back to our handle jumping function. And at the top, we're going to say if is on floor. So if the player is touching the floor, set jumpsLeft back to 2. So whenever we've done our jump, once we land again, we'll get our jumps reset. So we have 2 jumps. Now let's run and test that again. So if I do my double jump, then I can. And every time we land on the floor, our jump count resets. So let me go somewhere with some extra headspace just to test this as well. So pressing my jump key, I get the 2 jumps, no more than that, however. And it resets every time I land, so we can keep jumping. Something you might choose to change depending on how you want your game to play is at the moment, if I was to sort of fall off an edge here, I can still activate my jump. So even though I'm not touching the ground, our jump is activated. Depending on how you want the functionality to be, as I say, you could change this. So if I close this and go back into our code, then over on jumpsLeft equals 2, you could have it so that when the first jump occurs, the player must also be on the floor if you don't want them to be able to activate a jump midair. So if we go and test that now, then when we're over here, we can do our double jump or any jump as long as we're on the floor. But if we fall off and try to jump, it doesn't let you until you hit the floor again, but that's up to you. Now we'll jazz up our double jump here with some animation and some sound. So we'll close this and we will head to our player. So we already have the player script open. I'll swap to the 2D view and we'll start by making sure the animated sprite 2D is selected on the left here, and we'll go into our sprite frames. Now I'll click the add animation button down on the left here and rename this to double underscore jump. Now with double jump selected, we're going to select the add new sprite frames button and go to the assets. We will find this in Pixel Adventures, main characters, pink man, and then select double jump and open. Now we have 1 on the vertical and we have 6 on the horizontal. So select those frames and then add the frames. Now let's play this animation to see how it looks. Okay, so a funny little rotation. I'm certainly going to increase the FPS here, probably to 20. That seems to be what I have most of my animations at. And we'll see how that looks when the game actually runs, but there we go, he's going a bit faster now, so I'll hit pause. Now we need to go back to our script again so that we can get this coded in. If you haven't followed the previous videos, then something you might need to do is go onto your node tree on the left here and click and drag in this animated sprite 2D, hold the control key and then let go, and that will create a reference for the animated sprite 2D in the code, but we already have one. So that's just to help if you didn't already do that. Now we'll scroll down to where we handle our jumping. And all we need to do in here is activate our double jump animation at the point that the double jump happens. So that's going to be in this part here, because this is where our double jump triggers. So we can say that the animated sprite 2D dot animation will equal double jump, double underscore jump. So let's go and test this new animation to see if it works. So if I go to do my double jump, it does not work right now. Now that's because of the code that we have down here at the bottom. So the way we coded our character previously is we just had the single jump happening. So we said that if the character's on the floor, then if there was some input, it's possible for them to either be idle or running. And if they weren't doing that, then that must have meant they were just jumping. However, now that we have the double jump animation in, we need to make sure that this condition here doesn't override our double jump, which is what's happening just now. Because as soon as we call our double jump, it's actually saying, actually, we want the player to do the jump animation, which we don't just want to be the case anymore. So a reasonably simple fix here. We're just going to swap this else to say, else if jumps left is greater than or equal to 1, then we will play the jump animation. So what we're doing here is we know that once our value for jumps left becomes 1, we know that we want the double jump to be the animation that's playing. If that value of jumps left is greater than 1, then we know that it will be the regular jump that should play. So let's run and test again. And now we can see that when we do the double jump, we get our funny little rotation in the air there. And the character will actually rotate until he hits the ground as well, which is pretty cool. Now let's add a little bit of sound to bring this to life even further. So again, just make sure that you still have your player scene selected. And what we're going to do is go to the node tree on the left here, right click on player and add a child node of an audio stream player 2D and click create. Now we'll scroll to the top of our code here and we're going to click and drag in the audio stream player 2D, hold the control key and let go of the mouse. That will create the reference to our audio stream player 2D within our code. Now we'll scroll back down to our handle jumping function. And where we do our first jump, we're going to refer to our audio stream player 2D that we just added. So we'll say audio stream player 2D dot stream equals, then we'll say load and put 2 round brackets. Now, what we're going to do inside of this load function is we're going to call the file path to our sound that we want to add. So in my assets down here, I'm going to just cheat a little bit and use some of these assets that already exist. So I'm going to take the hurt sound here. So I'll click and drag that into here and let go. And this is the file path to that audio. So basically what's going to happen is when we have 2 jumps left, we're going to load this sound into our audio player. And then we can say audio stream player 2D.play. So we'll test this out for the first jump. So if we run this, when we jump, we get that sound, but no sound on the double jump yet. Now we can just copy and paste what we did here. So Control C, and I'm just going to paste that into my jumps left equal 1 condition check. And instead of playing hurt on this, I'm going to play this power up one. So I will swap hurt to say power up, power underscore up. That's the name of that sound file down there. So let's go test our double jump sound now. So if we run this, first sound makes a different noise to our second jump. Lastly, one quick thing to tidy up a little bit more is with the audio stream player 2D selected, we're going to go to the bus and set it to the sound effects. And that is it for adding a double jump to our game.